Good evening and welcome to another Power Platform Today show. We have a great guest on today. I will bring her on in a moment. So welcome along to our second episode. Hopefully you had a chance to watch the one from last week. This is going to be happening every Tuesday, 9 o'clock British time. And please do engage. You'll see during the video there will be some emails and communication channels. Please use them. It would be wonderful to get some feedback from the people that are watching, as well as some video content. We'll get into that later on. Without further ado, I will introduce Musonda. So here she comes now. Hello, Musonda. You are live. Please say hi and introduce yourself.
Hi, Riz. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Musonda Malama. I am a senior D365 Microsoft project manager. I am also a career coach and a speaker as well. I'm really grateful to be here and thank you for inviting me along to your podcast. I'm so excited to have a chat with you this evening.
It's a pleasure. That's really, really good. Thank you very much for coming. We know each other. Obviously, we've worked on some projects in the past, and that's where we've certainly met. But what's your background in terms of the Power Platform? So this show is certainly Power Platform and community focused. So I'm interested in the people and catching up with everyone and anyone, and I find that it's quite an interesting disparate group of individuals that get into the world of Power Platform. So how have you managed to stumble your way into this wonderful world?
Stumble away is the right word. So I come from a legal background. So I studied law at university, but I knew straight away that it wasn't for me and I wanted to do something else. I had no clear career path that I wanted to pursue, but I made friends with someone who was in the project management field, and they sort of introduced me to the project management stream. That's where I decided to go and get certified to become a project manager. And once I was certified, I worked on a program that had D365 as sort of one of the deliverables that we were working on, our financial operation and the contact center as well. And I worked on that. And then that was in the Middle East when I lived abroad in Qatar. And after I finished on that project, I moved back to the UK and I was working for a Microsoft partner. And one of the projects they gave me was a Power Platform project. At the time, I didn't know what it was. So I went online and did the fundamentals of Power Platform, just so I could understand the conversations I was having with the team that were implementing it. As a project manager, I don't need to know Power Platform, but I thought it was important for me to be able to have conversations with the technical team so I can understand what they're talking about and support them better. So I did the fundamentals of Power Platform, and then here we are. And we worked on a really good, probably one of my favorite Power Platform projects with yourself, Reese, which was a power portal for one of the big alcohol clients in the UK. So that was a really good one. But previous to that, I've also worked on other like housing associations, Power Platform portals, building the websites. With do you know when housing associations build out properties, they would have a functionality where you can go on and choose what you want. So I did one that was really good for one of the biggest housing associations in the UK. And that was a Power Platform project as well. Nice. So I do love Power Platform for the reason being that they're usually agile projects. And that is my preference of project delivery. So I do waterfall and Scrum, Agile, but my preference is Scrum. So yeah, that's my experience. This is how I've ended up here. So yeah.
Cool. Excellent. So how long, like how many years are we talking? Is that over?
So for D365 overall, Microsoft D365 since 2015, for Power Platform, that was 2021. I first got introduced to it.
Oh, wow. Cool. Excellent. And I'm interested. So it's funny thing when I'm doing interviews for people, I often ask what their favorite part of the Power Platform is. I'm interested. What would you say to that?
Yeah, you're going to ask that question, and I'm not a techie. I did it fundamentals of Power Platform, Reese. But I think for me, it's probably the app, because I can build custom apps now. Based on my little training. So don't ask me to tell you how to do it.
I'm going to ask you about that. We'll get back to that one. We're coming back to that.
To tell me how to do it. But I think it's just the fact that people like myself who are not technical and do not come from a technical background have the option and that can gain the skills to actually build applications.
Yeah.
You know, I know that there is still debates on, like, should citizen developers be allowed to go and build this, but I do think that is great to have the option to be able to do it, especially with limited skill set.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know, because we've had conversations about this before. I literally am telling all my mentees, the people that I mentor outside work, I do mentorship, I tell them to get into Power Platform because I feel like it's the easiest way to get your foot into the tech door as someone who doesn't have a technical background, because you can bring whatever skills you've got from whatever industry you're coming from, but learn quite quick, because not undermining that how difficult it can be over time, obviously, to get to your level. That's a different story, but to get your foot through the door, I think it's a great way to get started into the tech industry.
It is a platform, it's a set of tools, and it is designed by Microsoft to be something that you can onboard to quite quickly. If you've ever done Excel formulas, if you've ever done any reasonably complicated Excel spreadsheet, you are able to do Power Apps to an extent. It's the way it's designed, and that is a way on. And I find it's quite interesting because that is how a lot of people fall into the world of Power Platform, is not from a technical background. It is absolutely from business, or possibly it's technical, but quite often it is in other areas. I mean, myself, I started in business intelligence. I was doing data analysis. That's how before that, I was in a call center, but shortly after that, I did field service engineer. I always wanted to get into IT. That was what I wanted to do. And then I managed to somehow get a job at an IT company here in Edinburgh. And through that, I got introduced to the Power Platform. But at the time, it wasn't the Power Platform. It was Dynamics CRM.
Yeah.
But I was using it. I was an end user. And so that was my first experience with it. And I was like, this is quite interesting. There's lots to do here. And even though I was writing most of the time SQL reports to get data out of it, I naturally started to get into the other side of it, which was, well, how do we make it better? What can we do with it? How can we tweak it and make it nicer and customize it? And then I got into the more of the development side. So it is an interesting area to kind of fall into.
Yeah, and especially, as you say, when you've been an end user before, I do find that when you've been that on the other side, you know what works well and what doesn't, what can be improved on. So when you're working, and especially we do on the consultancy side of things, you can support your end users better as well, because you already understand the challenges that you experienced when you were on that side.
Oh yeah, it's a massive, massive part, I think, of good developers. Natural career progression should be to understand the business use case and try to understand why the business is asking for what they're asking for. Because if you don't understand that, then you're never going to be able to deliver the value, because you don't know what you're delivering. Yes, you can have a tick box. Yes, you can have acceptance criteria. Yes, you can have a bunch of data and requirements and definitions. But unless you actually know what the customer is doing and why, then it's difficult to really give them what they want, because quite often the customer doesn't actually know exactly what they want. And if you can question and understand more of what it is that they're trying to do, where it fits in the process, then it allows you to offer them better solutions. So whenever I'm talking to people, I always try to get them to think a lot more like that, away from the tech, because the tech, a lot of people can do the tech side. The most important thing is the communication and the understanding, and actually being able to deliver that value. So that's we're going to roll back a little bit there, because you mentioned the mentorship that you do. I know you're passionate about that. So talk a little bit more about it. What do you do?
I am. You know, it started from just helping out people that were friends and family if they needed a change in career or just a confidence boost, because I love things like that. You know, I love being an advocate and supporting people and encouraging them. Of course, you can do that. So it started from that, and then randomly I'd be working, because I'm a contractor, I'd work in different organizations, and I just found that every single place I was working, before I leave, someone would be like, can I just ask for some guidance on how I can go about doing this? I want to get into project management, for example. They could be working admin. I want to be a PM, or I want to transition to something else within the tech space. And then I'll be like, right, sure, I'll help you. And then we'll have sessions where I would support them, give them, you know, tips or interview prep, CV review and things like that, until eventually it just got more and more and started to get bigger. And then I thought I need to put some structure around this, because I was just draining myself out, because I was just trying to help everyone for free, first of all. Yeah. And I'm also doing my job. And as you know, the the work that we do can be quite full on sometimes. So I'm having a full on job, trying to mentor people for free and support them, but also trying to be young and survive and enjoy life. It just wasn't working. So I thought, let me put some structure around this and then be only able to mentor a few people at a given time. That way I can give them the support that they need, but also keep my level, my headspace. And I'm also trying to do more of the speaking stuff, as you know. So it's just trying to find the balance with that. So yeah, so it's helping people who are looking to transition into tech space, with career support. What do you need to do? And assessing the skills that they already have, as you said, because the skills they have, they don't have to start from zero. They can use their already existing skills to transition into tech. So what works well for you? You know, there's so many areas, even as we talk about Power Platform, you can be a Power Platform project manager, you know, you can be a Power Platform developer, or you can be, you know, a consultant. So it's just understanding the skill sets that they have.
Yeah.
And how those can be translated into a technical role without them starting from zero, because then you bring in whatever value they've already got and then bring it into the technical space. Because we do need those voices, as you said. We're trying to solve client problems, but we can't solve the problems just with the technology. We need people who understand the problems that are there because they've been on this side to help us solve those problems. So yeah, that's the mentorship.
Cool. Nice. So how do you find people to? Do you actively go out to find people, or do they?
No, they find me, Rich. It's so weird. It's just always been like this. They find me. It will be a random person message you on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, I just saw your profile." Even before I was putting out anything out there, I'm trying to be more visible now on my social media. But even before then, somehow people just found me. You know, it could be a conversation. I'll give a perfect example of this one guy that was an older guy that I worked with. And he was on another project. He was a project manager. He'd been doing it for about 2 years, and he was really stressed out because he just wasn't getting the level of support. And one day we were just on a team call in work. And I must have said something that I didn't even realize I said, because a few minutes later, he messaged me saying, "Can I speak to you in private outside work?" I was like, not outside that work, but outside the work meeting. I said, yeah, sure. And he rang me and he said, "Look, I'm really struggling with my confidence and I want to do this project management thing, but I have no confidence." And for some reason, when you said that, I generally can't even remember what I said, but I said something in the call that he said, that just resonated with how I feel. Can you mentor me? And I was like, oh, I'm not really taking on mentees at the moment. But he was an older guy and I knew how difficult it was for him to come into the industry. He'd only been in the tech space for a couple of years. And then I felt bad because I said no, and then I felt bad. So I went back and started helping him. And by the time I'd finished working with him, we did about 6 weeks of weekly coaching, helping him understand how to be more assertive in his speaking. Because as a project manager, you know, you need to be able to give confidence to the team that you're managing, that you know what you're doing, but also that they need to be comfortable to come to you because they feel confident that you will be able to support them. So if your voice is not, you know, your tone of voice is just not right, it's not going to work. So I gave him some support and he started to feel better. He was more confident to go and ask for a promotion as well, because so what he hadn't acknowledged, because he kept saying, "I've got 2 years experience." I said, "No, you haven't. You've got 15 years of operations experience and then 2 years of project delivery experience, but you haven't got 2 years experience. You've got 17 years of experience, 17 years of managing people, 17 years of, like, you know, putting plans together. Even from an operations perspective, you still have to plan and manage resources and all of that." And he was like, "Oh," and then just changing that perspective, just flipping that switch for him. And that's what I love, why I like doing it, because it's just that little change of perspective, just a simple conversation. It's things that people already know, that they haven't looked at it or thought about it from a different perspective. And being able to do that for them is just what just gives me so much joy.
That's really cool. That is very cool. Yeah, because I if I put it in my own terms or think about my own kind of life, my history, get into it, I had a lot of experience before I even got into the IT side, because I started in IT later. I mean, I'm 40 and I started really only 14 years ago doing what I'm doing. All the time before that was other stuff, just generally loafing about. But a lot of my experience before that was in customer service in some way, shape or form. And I find naturally I lean towards that. And that's one of my strong suits in terms of what I do. While I am techie, I translate and I talk to people. I'm a people person, as the Office Space quote goes. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but you have to watch it if you haven't.
No. I have seen it. You sent it to me, and
I
I've
did,
seen
yes, I
actually
did.
watched it. Remember, because I was pestering you about some
Yeah.
report, and you said, "Please watch this."
I love that film. There's just so many great quotes in it. But one of those is like
Yeah.
when the guys get interviewed, he's like, "Oh yes, I speak to people. I translate the developer requirements so the customer understands."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
"I'm a people person, damn it."
I can confirm though you are a good people person, especially from a technical perspective, because as we both know, techies can be quite
Yeah,
narrow-eyed, and they only focus on their area.
yeah,
This is it. That's it. Sometimes even like as a PM, I get frustrated, and I understand the technical terminology, but sometimes I'll be like, just break it down better so I understand. What does that mean? What does that explain it so that the client can understand? Because if I can't understand, the client's probably not going to understand you.
yeah.
But you do explain things quite well,
Thank you.
and I've always said it's a very crucial skill to have as a technical person, to be able to have conversations with people without confusing them. Taking that technical jargon and translating it into everyday language is a skill in itself.
Yeah.
And I think people don't undermine how much value that comes with all the other experience we have before we get into the tech space.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's also translated for me working with colleagues as well. So while I don't officially do mentorship like you do, I don't jump into that world actively. I do always find myself mentoring juniors or lower experienced developers because, I mean, for one thing, on the selfish front, it makes me a better developer if I'm
Yeah.
able to translate and understand and talk to them about the things they're trying to do. Then I can understand it better. There's a lot of experience says that teaching is a great form of learning. If you know something, you should teach it. It's a great way to learn. But the other thing is, I do like to see them getting better. Just there is a nice buzz to that, and certainly, every role I've ever been in, there will be people that have said, I've helped them while I've been there because I will give them the time. I think that's the other thing. I like to do that. Yeah, so it's great. But then that's what I love about this Power Platform community as well, because there's so many people in this community, in this space, that are like that.
Yeah, I don't know any other industry that is as big as community as Power Platform and just the whole Microsoft space is. I find that there is a level of support that you get. I don't know. I've been in the industry for a while, so I don't know if the other industries are the same. But I do find like, there's always the user groups, as you talked about on your last episode. There is, the community of people that, I know people from attending events, and then you've connected on LinkedIn, and then I'm working on a presentation that I've got to do for in April for the Manchester Tech Week. And I reached out to one of the guys in our community and said, hey, I'm really struggling for ideas on this. And he gave me some suggestions. I reached out to Trisha, Trisha, another one of the people that's quite prominent in the Power Platform community as well. And I said, I need some ideas on what to present in this. She gave me some tips, and it helped me get it all together because I was really struggling on what angle I'm going to take it from. I gave the topic myself, but then afterwards I was like, oh, maybe a bit of too much, a bit more than I can chew. But speaking to two people, they gave me ideas. This is the angle I'd approach it. This is what I'll do. I said, great, I'm going to start working on my deck. I was working on my deck today, and it's starting to come together, and I can see it based on just the little feedback that they give me. And just having access to that, and these are both MVPs, Microsoft, most valuable players in the Microsoft space. So they know their stuff, and they're taking time to just help little old me, to make sure that I do well in my presentation. So it's just amazing how strong the community is, and the resources that are out there to be involved in them, especially as a newbie. If I was coming in fresh now, I would be attending all the session, the user groups, everything else, just to get connected and in the network as well.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting thing as well when you first get into it and you start following people, because a lot of what we do is problem solving. It's a massive part of my job is being able to search a result. So Googling, Binging, whatever you want to call it. And nowadays ChatGPT as well. It's being able to ask the right questions to find the right answers, to then also be able to use your experience to translate that to the actual solution. So a big part of it is all of that. So blog posts have been something I've followed for a long time. I mean, a lot of solutions have come from other people writing about this is how I've solved the problem. And some of the earliest that I've seen in that sort of space were like superstars to me. And when I first met them going to conferences, it was so bizarre. It was like Scott Giroux, when I first met him, because I had been using the Ribbon Workbench and because I followed his blog posts. When I first met him, it was like meeting a superstar. It was just phenomenal. And he is just a normal guy like anyone else, but he's been there so long and he's been leading from the front that it was just amazing to meet him. And Jonas was another one, Jonas Rapp, using the Fetch XML toolbox, the Fetch XRM builder in the XRM toolbox. Oh my goodness, that's a tongue twister.
You can say it. Yeah.
Couldn't say that 5 times in a row. Everyone, I think, at some point probably will use that tool. It's just one of those things. If you have to do any kind of customization, even if you're an end user, it is useful sometimes to do it. That is a very well-known tool. And then when I first met him, that was amazing. Like, he was just such a nice guy. Really, really nice guy. He has loads of kids as well, which is quite interesting. He's good. I'm sure it's like 8 kids he's got.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
It's very telling, though, isn't it? It tells you that everyone is genuinely out there trying to help the community and make them grow. It's not about the glory and having like, I've created this and now, I'm a big celebrity, don't talk to me kind of thing. But everyone's genuinely trying to help everyone grow in their community, which is what I love about our Power Platform little community.
And with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now roll our video. So this is the section in the show where I play a community video of some description. Now, in this case, at the moment, it's me again. What I'm looking for those out there that are watching this, if you could please get in touch. I really want to have a 5 to 7 minute segment of recorded content from other people. Now, you'll see in this video, I've just used Teams. I've literally just used Teams. I'm just essentially creating a meeting myself and recorded it. And that's what you're actually watching. So it's easy to do. I don't need much. As much as anything, it's just the content. I want you to actually get in touch with something that you are interested in at the moment that has caught your eye or that you want to talk about. It's your 5 to 7 minutes to talk about anything that you want to do. So with that, I am going to start playing it. So on our side, we will watch it at the same time as you do live. So here we go now. Hello, I'm Reese Campbell, and today I'm going to do a roundup of the community posts that I've seen on LinkedIn that I've personally found quite interesting. Hopefully you find them interesting as well. If you do, then please comment on the show on YouTube. You can also email. You'll see that in the show itself, because really I want this area, this particular video, to be you watching, sharing your news about what you see in the world. So please do that. It would be really good to get some other faces in this slot. So I'm now going to jump into LinkedIn and we're going to go through some posts that I found interesting, starting with this one. So this is Alan DeCastro. He's been around in the community for quite some time, but this is an interesting one. This appears to be an AI tool with code examples. So this is very much aimed at Microsoft developers looking at AI capability. So it's not even necessarily specifically Power Platform, but it is quite interesting. So I thought that was one that I need to delve further into. There's a Git repo here that has a lot of contributions to it, a lot of stars. There's a lot going on here. So this is well worth having a look into. I think it could be quite interesting if you delve into the AI world. And let's face it, who this day isn't? So that's the first one. So that's Alan. Move on to the next. So this was Matthew. Now he's posting a series of articles on his blog, and I'm sure if you have read any blogs in the past for Power Platform, especially campus apps, you will have come across him. He's got a fantastic blog with some really good resources on there, and this one is around ALM, which is a subject near and dear to my heart. So this is being released on a regular basis. If we jump over to the blog, So this was the one that I came across here. But if we jump back up a level, you'll see that similar to his cookbook and a few other things, we've got a very well formatted blog here with a lot of information. I've not delved through all of it, but if it's anything like the rest of his material, then I definitely think this will be a resource in future. What I'm not 100% certain on is if it is pipelines or if it is Azure DevOps CI/CD pipelines. Again, I'll delve into it, but that's something I'm particularly interested in at the moment that I've come across. Next post, myself, so shameless plug, but also just because I thought this was quite interesting. I popped this on yesterday, and it's just the difference between early and late bound entities. If you've ever developed plugins or done any work in C# connecting to Dataverse, connecting to the organization service, then you will have come across the potential early bound generation capabilities. And I was just asking if anyone could actually give a reason for one or the other. I tend to prefer late bound because maybe I'm lazy. Maybe I just don't know enough about early bound in terms of why it's really that beneficial. There's been a lot of discussion here. Jonas there, we've got Daryl kicking in as well. There's quite a lot of big names in there, so it's definitely interesting. I think it is something I'm going to have to delve more into as early bound and spend more time actually focusing on how I can make use of it, because I think that there's definitely benefits there. And to be honest, there's not any real downside to early bound if you're doing it properly. The question is how properly is properly. So I'm going to spend a bit more time looking at that, I think. So next one, this is again a Devi type thing, the admin connector. So this has been available in various different guises over time, but it's in Power Automate, a connector that allows you to connect to APIs within the Power Platform to administer it. So all sorts of really cool stuff in there around things like creating environments and managing apps. But the thing that I thought was particularly interesting here is that it's going to be a .NET SDK shortly and embedded into the Pack CLI. So that is very exciting. That I'm really looking forward to. So that's pretty cool. Another one, we're getting to the end of this. So this is Power Pages. So a new thing that I came across. Now this was a week ago that it was posted, but I came across it, I think it was this week. So you can now embed site settings for Power Pages within solutions. Now that is quite interesting because site settings are data. So historically, if you want to configure different settings in different environments, then you have to make changes to the data, whether that's in your pipeline, whether you do it manually, however you manage it, you have to do it that way. Whereas now you can actually add them like environment variables into your solution. So that's quite cool. This was a blast from the past. So I talked about this actually on the show last week. So Janet started the Dublin conference, and according to this post, it was 8 years ago. Now I attended it 7 years ago. I did not realize actually there was one before, or at least I didn't think about it for a long time. But I mean, just look at those names. These are all very well known and well regarded people in the community. People I do look up to quite considerably and have had the pleasure of actually working with and spending time with. So I like that. It's a little bit of nostalgia going back to my early days in the community. Yeah, that was a good one. And then finally, last but not least, this one is an interesting solution assessment tool that's come out. So this, I don't know exactly what this is going to do, but the fact that it's there and it's a new tool from Microsoft for managing governance and ALM, well worth a read. So that's on my playlist for next week, I think, to delve into and see what that actually gives me. So that was my very, very quick roundup. Hopefully that's been interesting. Have you come across anything? What are you seeing out there in the world? Obviously, my LinkedIn feed is different to your LinkedIn feed. I'd be interested to know what you have come across. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening, and I'll hand you back.
And you back to me.
Yes, so that's us back live now, Musonda. So what did you think of that? I know that you mentioned before that you're delving more into the social media, and and spreading your, let's say, spreading your wings there. What do you think of LinkedIn and the sort of the whole social media thing?
I really struggle with it. I do struggle with being more visible on LinkedIn, and just I don't know. I've just never been a social media LinkedIn posts kind of person. However, I attended a session a few weeks ago that was run by one of my friends who's in change management, and one of the things that she called out was this. She said, "You need to stop looking at posting on LinkedIn as whatever, I'm posting on LinkedIn and the cringe way that you look at it, and you need to start seeing it as I'm impacting and I'm sharing my knowledge with those people who need it." She says,
Yeah.
focus on the impact, because what you're doing is a disservice to yourself, but also a disservice to the people that could be learning from you. As you said before, when you know stuff, you need to share it so that you can learn, that people can learn from you, but you also learn from people that will interact with you and feedback. And,
Yeah.
you put up a post that, it had 1,500 and something impressions there. I saw it's a lot of people that have seen that. You don't know who's taken up and said, "Oh, let me go dig deep into this. Let me go and read more about this." So it's just putting yourself out there. It's a bit of a struggle for me, but I'm actually doing a challenge where I'm going to post every day for the next 21 days and see how I get on.
Every
I
day. When
know.
did that start? Is it
Started
started
on
already?
Monday. So
Monday.
I've done 2 posts. I've reshared a couple of things as well, but this is actually content that I've created and posting it myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I do it on the weekend and then I just schedule it and then it posts every day over
Yeah.
time, and I just don't pay attention to it and just hope for the best. That it's weird. It's not something that I'm used to, but I do understand that if it's like your brand, isn't it? Now it's your brand, it's your CV. One of the things that she mentioned as well on this on the call, that when she was talking about being more present and visible on LinkedIn, she said, think about it when you're working with someone. The first time you work with them, what's the first thing we do? Go and
Yeah.
check their LinkedIn.
Yep.
Is your LinkedIn showing how much you know about the industry that you're selling yourself as an expert in? Is your LinkedIn revealing that?
Yeah.
And the answer for me was absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's nowhere on my LinkedIn is it showing my experience, any value that I bring to an organization that I work with. I'm just lucky enough to get my contracts through referrals and recommendation from people that I've worked with, but not from strangers, because they don't know that I exist. They don't know what value I can bring to the table. So
Yeah.
it's I'm going to do more. What about yourself? I've seen you started posting a bit more yourself. Maybe not every day like me, but
Oh goodness, no. I can. That's one of the things I've been struggling with. So I've definitely been trying to get more involved, get out there more. Again, it's that sort of personal brand idea, and I've just been putting more of an effort into it because I find it. I mean, I do find it interesting. I do find the discussions and the engagement interesting. That's one of the reasons I brought that one up on the early bound, late bound that I did, because it's a question I have, and I know it's a bit of a controversial topic in that I knew it would get responses because I know people feel quite strongly about it, but it's also a good way to get some back and forth and feedback and understanding, because to be honest, I don't consider myself a strong software developer. I have fallen into this career doing what I do, and I think of myself more as a scripter. I mean, I can functionally make the platform do what I need it to do. I know enough to make that happen. I don't need to know the whole .NET framework. I don't need to know everything that it can do. But saying that, there is probably a lot more power there that I should understand. And that's something I want to try and focus on this year. It's one of my goals for this year, is to technically be better and spend more time actually looking at what I should be doing out there, because I've let that slide a little bit. When you have a little 6-year-old, the rest of time just kind of gets sucked up into that. So
yeah, I mean, it's like the way I say it to people, and I think and I say it to my mentees as well when I'm encouraging them to go in the tech space. When you've been in the tech industry or power platform industry, for example, for a while, you become relaxed and it becomes almost like an autopilot that you do things. But with constantly evolving Microsoft stack,
Oh
you
yeah.
cannot afford to do that,
No.
So you need to be talking to people. I saw you commented on someone else's post today about something else. I just remember I just remember reading it when I was scrolling on LinkedIn earlier today, and you were asking them, you're saying, "I'm not challenging you, but I just want to know, are you sure this is the right approach?" It's things, those conversations are needed, but we can only do that if we're engaging. And we have the thoughts, because I'm the same as you. I do actually like scrolling on LinkedIn and seeing what other people are posting and responding to the comments and engaging with them. But I
Yeah.
just never put up my own thoughts. So why is it that I'm okay to go and have a conversation on someone else's thread? Why am I not sharing my own thoughts about what I'm thinking in that moment? Why do I
Yeah.
just post it on someone else's page and not my own? Like I did, one of the posts that I've done actually this week was in relation to AI actually.
Hmm.
So I did a training in the spirit of trying to keep your skills up and not get too comfortable. I was doing a training on how to utilize AI better as a project manager.
Hmm.
And one of the things that the trainer was talking about was that when we first start working with any tool, whatever tool it is, we spend time learning it, understanding it, seeing how, trying this, trial and error. Does this work? Oh, I think this works better that way. Maybe let me try this. Changing things around how we do it until it starts to work for us, how we
Yeah.
expect it to work for us.
Yeah.
And then it had me thinking, because that's what she was saying. So just give it time, keep learning, don't stop, keep trying different things until it starts working for you. And once it starts working for you, that productivity that you're going to get will be worth the week or two that you spend learning that technology or that too.
Yeah.
And it had me thinking about the people that we work with and how much time we commit to learning how they work, you know. And so I put up a post based on that, saying, are we offering people, humans, the same level of patience that we offer technology? Because when you all started out in Power Platform, I'm sure you didn't know everything. And as you correctly admit, you're still learning and you're still figuring
Yep.
things out. You didn't do it once and say, oh, I don't like this. This is hard. It doesn't work. Throw it out. Right. But we tend to do that when we're working with humans. We don't give
Yeah.
them the same level of patience that we give technology, where we just say, do you know what? I can't. Yeah, he just doesn't get it. So I'm not going to work with him anymore. So I thought it was quite interesting
Yeah,
because,
that is interesting.
yeah, yeah, I've never thought about it. But when the woman was talking on the call, I was just thinking, this really this makes sense, because that's exactly what we do. The
Yeah.
chat GPTs, Claude, Copilot, we'll give them prompts and prompts until they start to understand our prompts, that we don't have to give them as many prompts anymore because they get it. Whereas before you'd be like, no, change that to this. No, please edit that today. But then eventually they start to understand what your prompts mean to give you the better results. So
Mhm.
you train it until it gets to a point where it works for you. But when it comes to, should we start training ourselves to work better with other people? Maybe that's something to think about.
It's hard though. I know
I know.
I'm definitely guilty of being, I mean, my wife would say patronizing, but I definitely I have a short tolerance sometimes for people that are not picking it up when I'm talking. And I think part of that, when you say like the chat GPT and putting patience into that, I think there's an element of when you're talking to something like that, it is actively responding and changing exactly as you
Mm,
said, based on what you're saying.
mm,
So you're seeing that evolve as you talk. Whereas with another person, that's harder because that's a whole different person that you can't describe quite often what you're thinking or trying to get across in a way that they will fully understand, and so it's much harder back and forth. And I've struggled with that in the past. It's one of the reasons why I spend so much time trying to be better at it,
mm.
because I know I need to be better at that. I know I need to have more patience with people, because it's a natural thing. There's this idea that as an expert, it's actually quite tricky to teach someone because you forget what you learned,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you've been doing it for a while. And so those things at the beginning that you're just like, why would you not know that? That's
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
simple. They just haven't done that yet. They haven't learned that yet. And so it's something I have to constantly remind myself. I've done this for longer. And even with people that have been maybe even doing it for as long as me, I can't assume that they know what I know because I
Yeah.
have a different approach. I do different things
Mhm.
differently. They
Yeah.
just have different experience, and it's a constant battle to remind myself of these things.
No, do you know what? I think you've said something that actually I didn't think about, and it's that change. You're asking it and you're changing the prompt, and then it's
Yeah,
delivering it's that, and especially people that are driven by results. Me, I want to see results.
yeah,
So if I'm
yeah,
telling you and then getting the same thing back, it starts to get very frustrating. And I am quite red in my personality. So
yeah,
I just want to get things done. Let's just do it. So it gets quite frustrating, but it's remembering that everyone is set up differently and
yeah,
everyone learns at a different pace as well. Um, it's a challenge, but one we are going to continue working on.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
we're coming close to the end. So there is a little segment that I've got that we'll get into in a moment. But just since you mentioned red, it's quite an interesting one. That insight profile, which is what I believe you're talking about.
yeah.
So I've done two of those in over the years. One of them I did in my first IT job I think it would have been 2012. I did it, and then I did it again. I think it was last year with my current job. And it was quite interesting comparing them because I've changed, at least based on that profile.
So what was the first result?
So the first one was green and yellow, and I was focused quite
So
heavily in
green
green.
is more like a people person and
Yep.
caring
People,
and
bubbly,
yeah,
cheerful, all of that kind
okay.
of happy
Yeah, and
vibes.
yellow is more creative and
Yep.
okay. And then what's your new one now?
Much more red and much more blue.
Oh,
So I've shifted almost exactly to the opposite spectrum, but I think it's these questionnaires. They're not perfect, and they are a moment in time thing. And I always struggle answering the questions because I can only put it in the context of what I'm currently thinking or doing,
yeah,
and that I think is interesting because it reflects my career. At that time, when it was green and yellow, I was doing support basically. I was doing customer
um,
service, and
mm,
I was younger, not much younger, but still younger.
yeah,
So there's an element of being different and being in a different role and being more people focused, and so there was probably a lot more of that. Whereas now I'm much further in my career. I'm in a role where I am leading other people. I'm expecting them to do things, and so that's where the red I think has naturally come out. I'm much more assertive now than I was back
yeah.
then because I know more, and I believe that what I'm saying is the right way to go forward. It's interesting that it reflected in my profile.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're probably more confident now than you were back then
Yes.
with who you are as a person, just
Yeah.
because you're older, but also you've progressed a lot more in your career. I wish I'd done it when I was younger to see, but I feel like I've always been quite red. I do think I have a lot of green as well, though. Like I do care about people,
I
and I
definitely think
always,
you do.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Uh,
But definitely red because my patience levels is just like, let's just go, let's just do it. Okay, let's do it, let's do it. Um, yeah, I tried to say to someone the other day that I was blue, and they just said, no. And I said, fair. I wasn't even going to argue because, yeah. Um, yeah. Oh, wow. I can't believe it's been 40 minutes. I
I
didn't
know
even
it's flown by.
realize.
It's absolutely
It's
flown
gone
by.
quick. Yeah.
So the last little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask some quick fire questions,
Okay.
and I want you
Don't
to.
ask me no techie questions, Reese,
There's going to
please.
be some
Okay.
techie because I
Okay.
have to. It's just, but no. To be fair, quite a lot of it isn't. But the
Okay.
first one is favorite Power Platform service.
Ooh. Oh. You did this to Keegan and I watched it. I should have done the work and done my research, to be fair. Oh,
No, because it's the first thing that comes to mind. So
I
like,
know. I can't, yeah, my mind's gone blank.
that's fine. We'll move on. Favorite conference.
So Scottish Summit.
Ah, nice.
I've not been to the South Coast one
Yep.
because down south and it's far. Well, Scottish is far as well, but you can fly there from Manchester. So
Yeah.
yeah, Scottish Summit. But I do also know a lot of friends that go there, so it's good to connect with them and meet them. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Scottish Summit's good fun. I definitely it's got a place in my heart. The difficulty I find with that one is it's around my birthday. So
Oh, so you don't
I
tend to
can't,
go?
like last year I wanted to go, but I was in Greece because there was no way I was gonna not go to Greece
Miss
for my
Greece, yeah,
40th
yeah,
birthday.
fair, fair.
All right, third one. So favorite color.
My favorite color. Ooh, it depends. So what am I? It depends what I'm doing. So if I'm doing like a slide presentation or a deck, it'll be blue.
Okay.
Um, but I do think I've always said purple was my favorite color, but I never pick it up with anything. Like so on paper it's purple, but I think it's blue.
That's really interesting. So you hide your favorite.
I don't know. I think it's meant to be purple, but I don't know because I've always said purple, but I never, mind you, my cup of my is purple inside, so maybe that's a start. But it's never something that I've always got like a purple this and like
Yeah.
I always gravitate towards blue, so I think it's blue.
Very interesting. All right. Last music you can remember listening to.
Mm, I've listened to something yesterday that was very random because I haven't. Can I check?
Yeah, of course.
Because it was very random. Gravity by Ella A. It's like a random. Do you know it?
I believe I do know it. I can't imagine. I just know that name.
Yeah, so it's a song called Gravity. There used to be a version on YouTube that was a slowed down version because I do
Okay.
like to listen, but I can never find it anymore. So I was looking for it. That's why I know it's the last one.
Ah,
Because I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it. So I found an acoustic version instead and I listened to that. Yeah.
nice. Very nice. Podcasts or TV?
TV.
Cool.
Audiobook instead of podcasts. It's weird. I love an audiobook when I'm driving
Hmm.
more than a podcast. I don't know what it is. I think it's just easier for me
It's
to
interesting.
focus on the audiobook.
Yeah. I've got a friend who he drives a lot, like across Europe kind of thing, and he's listening to audiobooks all the time.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think if I was in the car more often, I probably would listen to more audiobooks. I find that I love an audiobook, but I don't find that I've got enough time to just sit down and take it in for a certain amount of time,
yeah,
where the car is quite good for that.
yeah. Yeah, audiobooks. I do find that podcast because I'm trying to listen to like everything and then think my opinion. What's my opinion on that? Whereas a book, I'm just listening. So it's
Yeah.
better for my driving. And I usually do that when I'm driving.
Nice. If you had 2 hours with no other responsibility, what would you do?
2 hours, I'll
Two
probably be
hours.
sleep. I'll probably be sleeping.
Nice. I think we might, well, books or audiobooks?
I love a book, but I don't know. Time
Yeah.
nowadays just doesn't allow. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks because that's the only way I get to keep my book numbers up.
Yeah.
But I do, and it's crazy because I'll buy the hard copy and then buy the audiobook as well, and then I'll listen more before I get to reading it. So
Great
if
for the
I'm on
authors.
holiday, I'll have I know bad for my bank. But if I'm on holiday, hard copy. But audiobooks, I love an audiobook. I'm always listening when I'm making food downstairs. Sometimes when I'm doing admin and work's finished, no meetings
Yeah.
and admin, I'll play an audiobook and just listen to that.
Very nice. Glass half full or half empty?
Always have food.
Nice. Very good. And lastly, if you won £1 million, what would you spend it on?
I wouldn't tell anyone, first of all. So I will put it in the
That's
bank.
sensible.
I would keep that private. What would I spend it on? Ooh, that's interesting because I do feel it's crazy. I was talking to someone about this today. I do feel like I've got all the things that I've always wanted to dreamed of having.
Oh, nice.
So I don't have anything on my list apart from one thing, which I don't think I'm ready for yet, which is a Bentley. So it
Ooh.
might be the only thing that I spend it on because I do feel like I've got everything else that I've always wanted on my list. Like it's crossed off,
Yeah.
except for the Bentley, but I don't think I'm ready for that yet. I always said it would be like in my older years.
Oh wow. I want to see you cruising around in Bentley. That's
Yeah, well,
that's a vision right there.
watch that space. I played the
Very
lottery
nice.
this afternoon, so maybe.
Well, that has been absolutely wonderful, Musonda. Thank you very much for joining me today. That's been an absolute blast. 48 minutes of pure joy.
Oh, thanks for having me, Rick. I do appreciate you, and I shall be tuning into the rest of these. Really great
Excellent.
that you're doing this. I know how long you've been wanting to do this, so this is great to see. So yeah, I appreciate you inviting me along.
Thank you very much. And for everyone out there in the audience, as I said, please do get in touch. Comments below or get on to LinkedIn, message myself or the company there. And also there's an email address. So please do, if you do record a video, more than happy to just send that by email or just get in touch there. You should see that under the video. It's been flashing up the whole time. So yes, thanks again very much for everyone out there. I appreciate every one of you out there, and I will see you, well, not see you, I will be on the airwaves same time next week. Thank you very much again, and goodbye.